Hello and welcome to this session here. Of course, I'm Kevin Zimmerman from Unlocking Black History, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to join me at this live stream. The session that I'm going to be talking about today is a topic that I've gotten a lot of information on over the week, and that is the topic of the racial wealth gap. And I find it interesting. I find it interesting why this is such a strong topic with so many people. And I'll tell you why. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read a just generic definition of the racial wealth gap. And so we can kind of get an understanding here. And that definition says the racial wealth gap is a persistent economic divide measuring the disparity in total net worth, which is assets minus debt, between different racial and ethnic groups. Once again, it's the racial wealth gap is a persistent economic divide measuring the difference in wealth between economic groups. And I want to touch bases on that, especially from the information that I got, because I find it amazing. And I find it amazing for this reason. And I'm going to start with this example. Let's say we had two families, okay? One family was allowed to plant and grow on an orchard. One family was allowed to plant and grow an orchard. The other family was legally denied the opportunity to own land. What would be the difference? The difference would be the harvest. And there would not be any discussion about that difference. The reason I want to use that as an example is because there is a cause and an effect from historical matters to present day manifestations. The note that I wrote here, it says, the racial wealth gap did not appear naturally. It was created through law and policies. The racial wealth gap did not appear naturally. It was created through law and policy. Black Americans were legally excluded from wealth building opportunities for generations through slavery, black codes, Jim Crow, redlining, discriminatory lending, and unequal access to education, to include government programs such as the GI Bill to strengthen the middle class, because even that was administered unequally. So there's a cause and an effect here. And it's factual that these things took place in our American history. The data shows the wealth disparities due to these things. And it fascinates me how many, primarily white Americans, has responded to me and said to me, the only thing that's holding you back is yourself. And I'm going to speak to that in a minute, because that statement suggests to me that you are totally missing the purpose of the conversation behind the racial wealth gap. And I say that because nothing holds us back. We have always overcame opposition. The black race has always been conditioned to push the boulder uphill. And to make proof of that, when you meaning in general, when the white race did not want us to have schools, we built our own. As a matter of fact, when the white race did not want us in their churches, we established our own. When the white race did not want us to have businesses, we created our own. And that legacy has continued from slavery till today. But let's not be misunderstood here, because you're being disingenuous when you see Black success, but you focus on an intent towards victim blaming. And you cannot do that when the evidence speaks for itself. Did we have slavery? Yes. Did we have Jim Crow? Yes. Did we have Black codes? Yes. Did we have redlining? Yes. Was the GI Bill to strengthen the middle class distributed unequally? Yes. Were all of these things legally allowed? Were they codified by law? Yes. So in that regard, you cannot rightfully look at any Black person that has the discussion about the racial wealth gap and claim that we are victim blaming, when the facts speak for themselves. Now, I do want to place emphasis here. Facts about inequality are not accusations against an individual person today. So when I do my videos explaining the racial wealth gap, I am not blaming you specifically today. Now, I will say that today there are still some disparities we still see today. As a matter of fact, I can tell you that in the year, where are we at? We're in 2025. I can tell you within the 21st century. I can't tell you exactly when. I want to say 2016, but I may be in error and I don't want to err. But it was within the 21st century. There was a bank that was found to have denied Black veterans home loans at such a large, significant rate, larger rate than white veterans. Black veterans who qualified, let me put that in them, let me make that clear. And do your own research. I'm asking you. Don't just trust, verify. In the 21st century, there was a bank that was found negligent of denying qualified Black veterans home loans. And they were granting those loans to white veterans. And that's in the 21st century. There, as a matter of fact, I'll tell you even my own story. When I retired from the military after 20 years, my last position was I was the non-commissioned officer over a 296-bed deployable hospital. So I knew I had the organizational skills and the management skills to transition that over into human resources. Back then, and you can see the gray in my beard and the gray on my head, but back then in 2000, when you submitted your resume, you had to either email it or fax it or hand carry it in. It went into a pool, and a selection pool, and hopefully you would wish that someone pulls your resume out. My resume got pulled probably within a week. I'm anticipating because it was back in, I mean, I'm estimating because it's back in 2000. My resume got pulled. And the hiring manager that pulled my resume said that I was on paper the perfect candidate for the job. So immediately she did a phone interview. Now, mind you, we didn't have we didn't have FaceTime. We at that time back in 2000. So we do this phone interview. And on the phone interview, she acknowledged that I was the ideal candidate and she requested that I go downtown the next day because it was at a very prestigious hotel in downtown Dallas. And she requested that I go downtown the next day to meet with the hiring manager because I was the ideal candidate. So I knew to dress in my banker blue suit, white shirt, and power tie. I had my briefcase with my resume, and I went down there. And being a soldier, I got there 30 minutes early. I checked in, but I sat there approximately an hour or so after my appointed time. Now I had saw a lady come out and go back in. She'd come out, she'd go back in. But after that time went by, I went back to the front desk and I asked, "Is my interview still going to take place?" She calls back, and finally, that same lady comes out. And when the lady comes out, she calls my name. So I walk towards her, I do shoulder back, chest out, and I walk towards her. And I went to shake her hand, and she let the door go behind me and turned and started walking towards her desk. So when we get to her desk, I sit down, and it was a cold, unpleasant silence there. And I, to break the ice, said, "Hey, jokingly, I thought maybe you guys forgot about me." Without making eye contact and in the coldest fashion possible, without even looking at me, she said, "I thought you were one of the drivers. And by the way, the position has been filled." That's here in the 21st century. Now, I know what happened. What happened was she saw the resume, and the name was, my last name is Zimmerman. And she didn't correlate that Zimmerman wasn't a white person. Then the resume was strong. She talked to me on the phone, and I'm not saying this to impress, but just to impress upon you the biases that some people can have. Apparently, my skills were such that she felt I was ideal. I had the right name and I sounded right, especially on the phone when you're not looking at me. But when she saw me in person, something changed. That's in the 21st century. The racial wealth gap isn't about opportunity. I mean, isn't about, uh, yes, let me say it this way. It's not about opportunities. Opportunities exist, opportunities that always exist. It's about access to opportunities that we have been denied, but we have still pushed through. As a matter of fact, we've pushed through to the highest office in the land. As a matter of fact, to validate that, all you need to do is go to the south side of Chicago, where America's first black president put his presidential center. But we are being disingenuous when we want to act as if these things aren't in play. They've always been in play, but we can't act like they don't. My question is this: if the evidence is factual, then why does the conversation always create anger? I repeat, slavery was real, we know it. Jim Crow was real, we know it. Segregation, which was a point that I didn't make the last time I went down this list, was real, we know it. Unequal distribution of government policies is real, we know it. So when we talk of the racial wealth gap, and we have fact-based evidence, how does that shift from the context to victim blaming? I've never said that this held us back. I've said America always put these oppositions in front of us, but I've never said this held us back because we've always thrusted forward. Always. We've never been allowed anyone or anything to hold us back. But you can't imagine the vitriol that I get from talking about the racial wealth gap. And what's even more surprising is when I get a Black American who comes on here or to contact me and say, there you go, blaming somebody else for your downfall. What about black this, black that? And it fascinates me even more when I hear that from them. Because once again, I'm talking about something that is fact-based and true, but I never said that thing that is fact-based and true correlates to us not being able to succeed. The first winner of the Kentucky Derby was a Black jockey. And because of his success or their success, they got ran out of horse racing. That's just one of a gazillion things, from athletics to education to job performance. We've always been able to succeed, but that doesn't erase the evidence. And so for the Black Americans who say things to me such as, there you go, talking about the racial wealth gap, you're responsible for your own destiny and this, that, and whatever. I'm not denying any of that. But you're being disingenuous when you think that, and maybe you've made it, and maybe you've been successful, but that doesn't mean that these things didn't exist or don't exist because you've been successful. Because I'm going to ask this question. If this is not a real thing, name to me one white person that has had systems put in place and codified by law to prevent them from succeeding. Name me one that had systems put in place, codified by law to prevent them from having equal access to opportunity. Because if that is not the case, then you may want to reconsider talking to me about speaking the truth behind the racial wealth gap. Besides, when it comes to me talking about this, there's a generation that's coming behind me, and they are sharp. These young kids are sharp. But some of us, even Black Americans, when we hear someone talk about the ghetto, don't even have the knowledge to be able to explain how the ghetto was even created. Don't have the knowledge to be able to articulate, even to the next generation, what happened with redlining, what happened with white flight, what happened with de-investment in the Black community after it was redlining, and white people left that area. What happened when the federal government, the Federal Housing Administration, gave subsidies, which is, oh, we better not talk about handouts, right? But gave subsidies to builders to build a house in the suburbs with the white picket fence, with the baby and the dog. And they paid them subsidies, providing they did not sell any of those homes to Black people, knowing that the home is the foundation of generational wealth. And if you think I am not telling you the truth, just do your research on what's happening today, why Washington, D.C. is getting raked over the coals because housing is outpricing the market. Because that's the foundation of a family building generational wealth. My own father, I had to watch my own father, who wanted to take us out of the inner city, not quite in the suburbs, but he wanted to purchase a house. My father, who was a veteran, by the way, be told, given a piece of paper, by the way, and told by a white man, and this is back in around 1968, that I cannot sell, rent, nor lease this property to anyone other than the Caucasian race. These things are real. These things are real. Now, my father ended up buying us a nice home. We did have a nice home. Was it in a red line district? Absolutely, but it was our home. And I have no regrets about that house that I grew up in. I'm sure my father didn't either. However, I can guarantee you that the equity in the house that we were forced to grow up in, because my father was a Black man, was not the same as the equity that could have been produced if he was able to purchase that house, that the man gave him that letter saying that he could not sell, lease, nor rent that property to anybody other than the Caucasian race. These things are real. So anytime we are talking about facts, and we are talking about American history that even to this day is attempting to be whitewashed and erased, I am not going to let that happen. So you can stop contacting me on that note. If I say something that's not fact-based or true, by all means, I welcome your negative comments. But as long as I'm doing my homework and I'm doing my research and I'm saying something that's fact-based and true about the plight of Blacks in America, I can assure you, if you don't like the idea or the notion of me talking about the racial wealth gap, then this is not the channel for you, because I will make sure that our youth understands the obstacles that have always been put in our way, so that they could think more about the pride they obtain because of the resilience we've demonstrated to overcome those obstacles every single time. So that is the topic that I wanted to address today, because I've gotten a lot of feedback from it. Why are you still talking about the racial wealth gap? You're the only one holding us back. Yeah, I'm going to still talk about it because it impacts the plight of Blacks in America. And not only did it impact the plight of Blacks in America, some of that same opposition is true today. So I'm going to share this statement with you because I did write it out and I wanted to make sure that I shared it. I'm not looking to the past to excuse failures or assign guilt. I want to say that again. I am not looking to the past to excuse failure or assign guilt. But I am looking to the past to explain the present. Wealth in America is generational. Once again, wealth in America is generational. If history helped create today's racial wealth gap, then understanding that history, in my opinion anyway, is necessary to understanding the gap itself. Last but not least, if you have a family that was allowed to plant an orchard and they managed that orchard for generations, and you have another family who was denied the opportunity to even own land, the difference is going to be the harvest. Now, that does not mean that the family that was denied the opportunity to own land did not go out and create another means to establish wealth. But don't get offended, or you ought not get offended, when the fact is pointed out that that family was able to have an orchard, plant an orchard, and farm that orchard for generations. But that other family had to find another means because they did not have the same equal opportunity. Both things can be true at the same time. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my time today. Hey, continue to watch Unlocking Black History on YouTube. And I also want to thank you. If you are a part of the Facebook group and you're watching here, thank you. The Facebook group has now grown to over 14,000. I think it was 4 or 5 days ago, we celebrated hitting 10,000. We've now exceeded 14,000, and I sincerely appreciate your support. But if you are part of the Facebook group and you hear me here, please subscribe to Unlocking Black History on YouTube. We want to make sure that all of our videos, which are fact-based, thoroughly researched, and true, we want to make sure that all of that information gets out. There is no doubt that the erasure of Black history is alive and well and in full effect, but it's not going to happen here. So once again, thank you so much for joining. And please, for those of you that are supportive, thank you. For those of you who pose questions in respectful, mature dialogue, I welcome that. Thank you for engaging in that manner. But for those of you who just want to, I don't know what your intent is, but I just want to say right here, right now, I am not going to stop speaking the truth. So have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you guys at the next video. Take care.